Behold your son. Behold your mother. In times of suffering and uncertainty, we need each other. We need to keep caring, and we need the care of others. One of the most painful things about lockdown has been how that has been made difficult for people who live apart, unable to visit loved ones or share a hug as a sign of solidarity. Some have found ways round this with Zoom or letters or conversations from the end of garden paths. But as we move forward, the need to care for each other will be paramount. Jesus' recognition of the needs of others, even at the hour of his greatest need, reminds us of our need to follow his example. This also reminds us of the needs of those beyond our own circles, countries for whom vaccines are a distant prospect. In the hour of our need, with our own concerns, we too must attend to the needs of others and encourage those in power to do the same. Caring Jesus, as we hear your words out of your suffering, help us to be aware of the needs of others, to not think only of our own needs, and to be open to sharing your love in creative, practical ways with those in need. My God, why have you forsaken me? In the suffering, in the agony, even Jesus loses touch with God. Like the psalmist, he declares his despair. And in our times of despair, we can know that Jesus himself has been there. He can identify with us and we can identify with him, even in the bleakest of situations. Psychologists tell us that for mental health, it's important that we find ways of naming our reality. That's what Jesus does here. His brutal honesty with God, his naming of his feelings, give us permission to do the same. God can take our anger. God can take our despair. God can take our questions. Sometimes there is no answer. Sometimes there is simply a void. Sometimes God seems to have departed the scene. But when we name that, when we reach out, an energy can be released that can help us move forward, if only a tiny step. The uncertainty, the isolation, the losses of the last year has left some in despair. It is important that the story is told, the reality is named, even if it challenges our faith as it did for Jesus, so that we may in the end move on to discover God's healing, however it comes. I thirst. As well as naming his despair, Jesus also names his need. He needs a drink. He needs others to help him. Jesus' messiahship does not make him invulnerable. The leadership he offers is one in which he needs others to support him, to meet his needs so that he can meet theirs. Are we prepared to name our needs? Not in a selfish, egocentric way, but in ways that recognize our dependence on others and that build interdependency and mutual support. As we come out of lockdown, naming our needs will be important, and we mustn't just assume that we can pick up everything where we left off last year. As well as naming our own needs, we will also need a real awareness of the needs of others, and a sensitivity that people will not necessarily be in the same place, emotionally or spiritually, as they were before. And we need to learn in our pastoral care of others how we can help people to name their needs without them feeling inadequate or guilty. Thirsting Jesus, you knew your need and were able to name it. Help us to be honest about our own needs and to own our need of you at this time, so that we may share together in your ministry. It is accomplished. It is finished. Is this a cry of despair or a cry of triumph? A simple description of reality or a recognition that the job of salvation is complete? All those meanings are contained in the Greek word tetelestai that John's Gospel uses here. The mystery and the victory of the cross contained in one word. What does God accomplish here in Jesus? In another Gospel, the breaking of the veil in the temple speaks of the barrier broken between God and humanity. And the victory for me is in the restoration of relationship that the death of Jesus offers for us with God. The mechanics remain a mystery, except that it is not a simple transaction. It is a painful process, both for Jesus and perhaps also for us. But the journey with Jesus, a life of faith in him, takes us through the despair and the need that he also suffered on the cross, through the loving care and forgiveness that he demonstrated, to a new relationship with God. Saving Jesus, as we reflect on your cross today, help us to find in your journey a recognition that you travel with us in every aspect of our lives. And through your cross, help us to renew our relationship with our loving, gracious God. Into your hands I commend my spirit. And so we come to the end, at least for the moment. The traditional final words from the cross are ones of Jesus handing over everything to God. After all that he has been through, after all that has been expressed from the cross itself, Jesus entrusts himself into God's hands, the Son resting with the Father. There is nothing more he can do, nothing more he can say, but God remains all in all. There are times when perhaps we need to learn that there is nothing more that we can do, nothing more that we can say, and we can do nothing other than hand things over to God. Our desire to fix everything can sometimes yield amazing positive results. Just think of the work on the vaccine. But at other times we need to recognize that we can do no other than to rest in God's peace. Peaceful Jesus, grant us the discernment to learn when we have to hand over everything to God, our Father, our Mother. Give us a spirit of trust to recognise the times when we can do no more, and that God is all in all. This Good Friday, as we face the uncertainty of the future and count the cost of the past year, come to our hearts, that we may know the peace of God which passes all understanding, which will keep our hearts and minds in the knowledge and love of you. Amen.